Very warm welcome to everyone at Microsoft Research for the second workshop, which is on issues of AI and society. We've had a first workshop in the past, and part of the afternoon will be recapping what happened the first time around. The major change from the first time was that when we did it the first time, it was primarily people who were academics and research and practice who were part of the workshop. The one thing we did realize is that it makes a big difference to do this with people who are actively in the social sector. As you've all probably realized, AI and society is quite the buzzword these days. Even Rajnikant's latest film is about artificial intelligence. Yeah. And so this is not just one more event in that space. What we are trying to do is aggressively engage with problems which are coming from the social sector and look at how technologists can partner with that. So the format of the day is that the first half, which is talk space, is we'll start off with a talk from the center director and from the USC folks, and this is USC is the driver with MSR of this event. And the second half of the day will have nonprofits and NGOs talking about some of their problems that they'd like to apply various data-related solutions to, following which there will be breakout sessions in which people will actually get together in groups and talk about what technology can do to solve some of those problems. So in another sense, the second part of the workshop is essentially a working workshop. So if you want to sneak away before that, the time is right after lunch. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and let Sriram take it from here. He's the director of MSR India, and will introduce us to the project.
Thank you so much, Joyjeet, and I want to thank all colleagues from USC for making this trip all the way here and doing this workshop together with us. And I'm also very excited to welcome all the NGOs and people from the social sector. As Joyjeet mentioned, we had a previous event, but that one was mostly academic in nature, and I think I really want to welcome all of you for taking the time to come here and participate in this conversation with all of us. This is a picture of our first floor. If you haven't seen it, you should go upstairs. Absolutely beautiful office we are blessed to have. I think I invite you to go upstairs and check our gig out. So the objective of my talk is to give some context for who we are and why we are doing this. That's my goal, so that you have a sense for why we are doing what we are doing. To that end, actually, I wanted to first introduce Microsoft Research. Microsoft Research was set up in 1991, and we are a global organization. We have 4 labs in the United States, 1 in the West Coast and 3 in the East Coast. We have 1 in UK, 1 here in Bangalore, and 1 in China, in Beijing. And we are more than 1,000 people, 850 PhDs, which Rick Rashid computes it as N computer science departments, with I guess it is 850 divided by 50, whatever that number is, that many computer science departments, and engineers, and development horsepower to take those ideas actually and transition them. And this is our mission. And I think Rick Rashid was a big Star Trek fan, so I think this mission is somewhat modeled around, I guess this is to explore new worlds, civilizations. I think the last one is to boldly go. No man has gone before, and whatever. So that's you can see. But it's interesting and inspiring that the mission is written in such a way that it doesn't talk about Microsoft's current products. It gives Microsoft Research the ability to have as its first and foremost goal to expand the state of the art, which really drives the culture of this organization. Right? This is us. This is Microsoft Research India. We were set up in 2005, so we just became a teenager. I think we are now 13 years old, and this is all of us. You can fit us all in one picture. I always like to brag about my colleagues. So these are awards that my colleagues have won recently. Bill Thies was year before last. He won the MacArthur Prize. We have had 3 ACM fellows recently. Venkat also won the Shanti Swaroop Bhatnagar Prize, which is one of the highest awards that the Indian government offers to scientific research. And this is the first time they've given it to someone who is not in an IIT or a DRDO or a government organization. They gave it to someone working in a multinational lab, which is a real testament to how people value and respect what we do. Indrani recently won the Sikh Social Impact Award. So that's a sense for the colleagues that we have. And this is our younger crowd. In addition to the full-time people, we have a program called the Research Fellow Program, where we recruit undergraduates, people who have finished bachelor's and master's, and we recruit them as trainees, research trainees. They spend 1 to 2 years with us. We currently have 40 research fellows. I think we run the risk of them exceeding the number of full-time employees, I think sometime soon. We actually started with 5 research fellows, now we have 40. And for those 40 positions, we get more than 1,000 applications. And the best from all the IITs and the BITS Pilani and the IIITs apply there. And they bring so much energy, much like students bring in academia. And we have 40 of them currently here. And so one thing that happens is that a lot of them go do PhDs after they finish their time here. And, they could apply to USC or Berkeley, and they go to US universities, European universities. But some of them decide not to do research, and the ones that decide not to do research tend to do better. So Ola was started by one of them. By any measure of imagination, I think he's doing well. Capillary was started by Krishna Mehra, who was an RF with me. And these are other companies that were started out of staff that were in the lab. That gives you a sense for how entrepreneurial the lab is. And in large measure, it is due to the young people, the new talent that we get every year. This describes the work that we do in this lab. Our work is organized on 4 major areas. We do a lot of work in theory and foundations of computer science, mathematics behind machine learning. We have a very strong group that does core machine learning and artificial intelligence, algorithms, tools, implementations, natural language processing. So we are very well represented in those areas as well. We have a very strong group in systems, which is the foundations and infrastructure based on which everything is built. And there is a very unique group in this lab called Technologies for Emerging Markets, which studies the role of technology in socioeconomic development. And it is most relevant to today's meeting. And this is an interdisciplinary group that contains both computer scientists as well as social scientists. And a lot of the work that I talk about today is from this group. But increasingly, the area of technology for societal good is becoming very interdisciplinary. And people with background in systems and machine learning are also doing work in this area. So I would broadly represent work from the entire lab in this area. Right? So actually, I also wanted to mention that as a lab, we think about our work having impact along 3 axes. One is in science, we're advancing the state of art in anything and everything that we do. And the second one is company. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that we do that gets transitioned into either existing products or inspires new products and services for our company. And we explicitly acknowledge in helping society as an important part of the axis of impact that we have. So for the people that are here from NGOs and social enterprises, one thing that I should make very clear is that the work that we do in this space is not CSR activity. Right? Our company has a CSR activity, and then there is a law in India that 2% of every company's revenue is given, and we do that too. Right? But this workshop is not about that. This workshop is about us engaging as scientists and technologists with you to help you solve problems in collaboration with us. That's what this workshop is about. The other interesting thing that has happened is that I joined MSR about 19 years ago. And when I joined MSR, Microsoft was a Windows and Office company. And so a lot of the work that we did in impacting society was largely of no relevance to the company. It was not relevant to the company's products. But if I now look at our cloud and AI offerings, right? This is as much, it's very integral to what our company does. We do want to engage with government, we want to engage with large communities of people, understand what problems they want to solve. So it's very much something that our company commercially is actually interested in as well. And you'll see examples of that in the slides that I'll show you next. Right? So here I have some examples of the kind of things that this lab has done in the past. So I will start with mature projects, projects that have had the benefit of time and sort of see where they have gone now. The first one on the far left is a project called IVR Junction that was started by Bill Thies. And this is an interactive voice response system so that people in remote and communities where people have access to a feature phone but perhaps don't have the literacy skills or they don't have a smartphone to engage on social media like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. But nevertheless, I think they have very interesting things to say. They have issues like most of us. Just like we get upset when we get a defective product and we can flame on Facebook, they would like to do the same thing as well. So IVR Junction was a piece of infrastructure that was developed by Bill and his colleagues. And then it was adopted first by CGNet Swara, which is an NGO that works in Gondwana. And several other NGOs in the world, even I know that Somaliland has actually adopted it. You could go to the IVR Junction webpage and you will see a huge list of customers that are using it to have these people raise their issues. Schools where teachers have not been paid that grievance has been addressed. There was a case of a hospital which was only on paper, but there was actually no hospital at all. So that has been discovered. So it's very powerful and empowering to people who didn't have a voice before. MEC is an online learning experiment that we did in this lab, which is we actually studied something called blended learning, where we combined online learning together with in-classroom education. And that was actually picked up by our development center in Hyderabad. And it has now evolved into Project Sangam, where the online learning system is also being integrated with LinkedIn, and it is being offered as a service for skilling and job training for low income labor. So it's very interesting, something that we didn't anticipate that would happen when we originally started this project. Digital Green is a video-enabled agricultural extension which was started as a project in this lab, and now it runs in tens of thousands of villages, both in India and in Africa. 99 Dots, and I think Amy is here, so she will give an update on 99 Dots later, is an innovative mHealth platform for tuberculosis medication adherence, and this is a project that was started here, and now we spun it off into a startup called Everwell. Andrew Cross is the CEO of Everwell, and it's right down the street. So I think if you have time, you could go visit Everwell as well. Yeah. So I wanted to give you a sense for the current projects that are going on in this lab, and my objective behind doing this is so that you get a sense for the kind of problems that our staff is interested in, right? Because the goal of this workshop is to open collaborative conversations between our staff and all of you. So I hope that these things give you the sense for the kind of things that our staff is interested in. So let me go from left to right. So the current work in the lab, there is a lot of interest in work. So Karya, for example, is a project where we are targeting a mechanical Turk-like crowd work for digital labor, for transcription, for labeling text, for labeling date of speech, so that automated NLP can actually be enabled for languages for which we don't have any training data. And we are working with government to see if the people who do this crowd work can actually be paid. And in a lot of cases, the government is actually willing to pay for such work. So Karya is such a project. Avatar is very interesting. It actually uses, again, crowd work to do verification. Say you are an NGO and you have donated money and somebody has built a toilet. How do you know that the toilet has been actually built? So this one uses crowd sourcing to have someone go there, stream a video, and then verify that a toilet has been built. And we could do this, we could make a small micropayment, and we could do this verification any number of times, so that if there is something wrong, we will come to know about it, right? So that's another one. Kaizala is a very interesting platform that is actually being built by our development center. It is a little bit like WhatsApp, but for enterprise. So it has a WhatsApp-like interface, a chat interface for the client, but it also has a server side where you can now write server code to manage all the information and so on. It has an enterprise component of chat as well. And Jackie O'Neill has been working with that group to sort of understand sort of the social implications of how such a product gets used by people. And the customers for this turns out to be Andhra Pradesh government, SERP, which turns out to be Society for Elimination of Rural Poverty. Right? So the customers of something like this turn out to be field workers who do societal work. And so we engage with them, sort of understand both technical and non-technical aspects of how such a product should be built. BlendNet is another very interesting project where we are trying to use bulk data, peer-to-peer connectivity to transfer bulk data between mobiles. So thanks to Reliance Jio, 2G, 3G connectivity is very prevalent in India, but it is still very hard to download or upload bulk media. Like video is actually always hard to do. So BlendNet uses peer-to-peer connectivity for bulk data, but still uses Azure as a network in order to make sure that you can do peer-to-peer without knowing the other person. So you don't have to know who the other person is to get the video. Azure knows who has what video, and it will actually transfer that for you. Learn to Earn is a very interesting system where it uses micropayments and incentives for people to learn information and transmit it to others. So it is actually a platform for virally spreading information dissemination. And there's more. I'm not going to go through more of these. You already mentioned 99 Dots. We have Amit Sharma, who's working on technology for mental health issues. This is for financial inclusion. We have a lot of work that is going on around technology for accessibility. That's a core area of the lab now. And I want to show you a few more. So natural language processing is also a very important area in this lab. And since this workshop is about AI and societal good, I should call out specifically that NLP has a huge promise for bringing people who have very low textual literacy and make the benefits of digital technology accessible to this population, which is a huge population in India. And AI, I think, has a huge amount of promise in inclusion for serving these kinds of communities. But there are significant technical challenges because of simply the absence of annotated data for lots and lots of these kinds of languages. So that's actually a topic that we actively work on. So I see Kalika and Monojit back in the audience. They study low-resource languages, and they have an active engagement going on with CGNet Swara to make an AI and NLP work for Gondi, which is a tribal language with absolutely no annotations today. IoT is another area where we do a lot of work, and we have work in Internet of Things, sensors for agriculture, for safety. How do you use sensors to make sure that we can monitor drivers and help them have safe driving behavior, and so on. I mean, if you're here, you might actually also get a demo of an interactive cane. I think there's Shishir upstairs can give you a demo. And these projects are projects where we are using blockchain, those kinds of technologies for decentralized identity, for making sure that there is trust and transparency in what people do. I mean, many of the NGOs might be interested in technologies that can ensure that you can actually track where your funds are going and so on. So we have technologies that are based on blockchain to do and those kinds of activities. Hopefully this gives you a sense for the kind of work that this lab does. And please keep this in mind. So I'm not saying actually we will engage with you only on these topics, but hopefully this gives you a sense for where people are coming from. Okay, so I wanted to show this slide as sort of a meta slide of what we have learned over the years doing all these projects, be it health, be it education, and so on. So some points here are one of the things one of the things about this lab is that I would say in addition to writing papers, we actually deploy what we build here. In fact, actually, we write a paper when we have something to say. And a paper is usually a byproduct of what we do, rather than something that we do because there's a conference deadline. Right? And I mention this not to disparage academics, but to reflect on my own experience as a student, right? Because as a student, right, you have to do that because that's the only way you can graduate. And as faculty, right, we have to do that because we are the graduate students. So don't take me wrong, right? So I understand that, but in a lab like this, right, we have the luxury of doing deployments, learning from them, and only writing when we have something to say, right? And so one other thing that we have learned is as a result of deployments in several underserved communities, low resource environments, how important people are in the socio-technical system that you are designing. Where technology, we repeatedly see takes root only if it is an amplifier and it amplifies people. Those are the only situations where technology gets adopted. And when we see this time and again, when we work with people with low literacy, when we work with people who are Uber drivers, Ola drivers, sort of understanding where they are coming from is such an important part of what we do. So we have ethnographers and so on who just immerse themselves with these communities and study what they do, even before we even decide what to do a project. So that's very much in the culture of the lab. And actually another thing that I'm very proud about is the amount of effort that goes into measurement and evaluation, doing things like randomized controlled trials, and now increasingly using machine learning to identify causal effects and so on. But we do write papers, and a lot of our work is also known in the academic community for papers that we've written. I want to give an example of, I showed you Indrani's Societal Impact Award. That came because of about 10 years of work that she did, thinking about interface design for low literate communities. So that really presented also a body of work that is identified with that research. So Kentaro Toyama, who started the TEM group, he also formed this conference called ICTD, which was the first avenue for publication of scholarly work in this space. And now ICTD has its 10th edition. It's going to happen in Ahmedabad next year. And there are other conferences like DEV, and I think the more recent one, and I think that Milind and others have been also involved in, Joy Jeet is involved in, I think Bill Thies is involved in. So this lab has had a significant role in getting these communities started, and we actively publish in these communities as well, right? I want to mention quickly some other things that we are doing more recently. We recently started an effort around a societal impact incubator. And the reason why we did this was to reflect on our experiences doing projects like 99 Dots, which transitioned into Everwell, Digital Green, which transitioned into an NGO. So we have learned that it's a journey, and the journey is different in each one of these projects, to take something that we cook up in a lab and take it to the community, and not only take it to the community, make it self-sustaining and survive outside the lab, right? And have an ecosystem where there is funding, there's a business model, and there is people that will take the idea on, and the idea just survives outside the lab. And we increasingly realize how important that aspect of the research that we do is. So we decided that we wanted to bring in, so we did this call, and I'll show you the call in the next page, where we wanted to bring in partners, be it government, be it social entrepreneurs, to work with us, to participate in that part of the journey. And one of the reasons why we did this was actually we also realized that there are other parts of Microsoft, other than Microsoft Research, that are very interested in this activity. So we are partnering with them to do this kind of societal impact incubator. And that's the web page. And we had a call for collaborative projects on cloud and AI technology for societal impact. And these were the themes that we put out. And interestingly, if you see, these themes align with the projects that I mentioned to you, which is the work that the people in the lab are doing. And so we put this out. We thought, what's going to happen? We received, I think, I don't know what the right number is, 150? 175? Yeah, so we thought maybe we'll get 50 submissions. We got 175. I think now we have to go through the process of evaluating them. And we are going to select like 4, 5, something like that. And we're going to fund them. And every one of them is going to have somebody in the lab to work with them. That's actually, in some sense, more important than the funding itself that we give. And we sort of think about this as the process of connecting with the community, which is so important for these projects, for them to survive outside the lab, right? Actually, that brings into point about why we are doing this workshop. The reason why we do calls like this and this workshop is because we are humble. We realize that we cannot do these things alone. And the community is such an important part of what we do. And that is something that we have learned over the years, and that's the reason why we invite all of you. The final topic I'll touch upon is social implications of AI. And this is not true just for AI. Every time you have new technology, could be automation, could be nuclear power. Technology can cut both ways. It can do good, it can do harm. And any discussion about technology, and particularly I think AI, has to actually consider social, ethical implications of what we are doing. So Jackie O'Neill pointed this page to me, and this is a very interesting report that if you haven't read, I encourage reading it. It's an institute in NYU called AI Now, and they have a report. There is an AI Now 2016 report, and there is also an AI Now 2017 report. It studies, it brings out issues about labor and automation and potential job loss from AI, how to think about that, how to think about bias and inclusion, which is fairness, which is very important when we use training data to train machine learning algorithms, and whether we are training them with a representative data set that represents all of us, rather than omit certain segments of the population. Rights and liberties, particularly about the use of AI technology by government around surveillance, video surveillance, facial recognition, issues like that, and more broadly around issues around ethics and governance. And I think that's such an important topic to discuss. I hope that when you have your breakout sessions, in addition to discussing technology, I hope that we will also discuss these topics integrally as part of what we do. Interestingly, we have inside Microsoft, my manager, his name is Eric Horowitz. He is a big proponent of careful consideration of AI and ethics in society. He's formed a committee called the Ether Committee, which consists of AI ethics, which stands for AI ethics and effects in engineering and research. And these are the subcommittees. There are 7 working groups that are actively working inside Microsoft Research and Microsoft around all these various topics ranging from sensitive uses, bias and fairness. And interestingly, there is a coverage of these 7 topics among the 5 things that you saw in the AI Now report. For example, I think AJ Kamar, that Milind knows, I think she's a co-head of the group on bias and fairness, for example. And so we have resources even inside Microsoft to bring to bear on these kinds of conversations, and I encourage all of you to make use of all of these resources in this conversation. So I'm almost about to end. I wanted to introduce you the multidisciplinary team we have. I realize Mutta and I have forgotten your picture. Sorry about that. So this I wanted to show this because we have social scientists, we have computer scientists, we have developers, we have program managers. We have a really diverse team that works in this area, and these are research fellows who are students who are spending time with us. And I think most of them are here in this room, and I think over time, I think you will have the opportunity to interact with most of them. This is the schedule for today. I welcome my colleagues from USC and all of you from NGOs and social sector. There's going to be talks by several people. As Joyjeet mentioned, this is the second workshop we are organizing. There was one that we did last year at IASC, and several, so one of the things that we are doing this afternoon is to have breakout sessions where, you engage with our staff to really think about, what concrete ideas we might work on together. So that's actually a very important outcome of this workshop, is to actually really, catalyze concrete ideas for collaboration. And we did this last time, and there are going to be updates for some of the workshops. Some of the projects, I think, have made progress. Ganesh is here already? Ganesh Ramakrishnan, yeah, he's here. So he was there at the last one, and I think this was discussed, and I think Ganesh and colleagues have made a lot of progress on that project. So they're going to talk about that. There's going to be also an update on 99 dots. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you on the problems that you are inspired by, so that we can collaborate. So the afternoon, there's going to be breakout sessions where more problems are going to be discussed. And there's people from the government that are giving talks this afternoon. And then there's going to be presentations for the breakout sessions. Whoever, as you're thinking about it, you will get to give talks on that. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay, thank you. And with that, we welcome the colleagues from USC to give the next talk. Yeah, thank you.